Good afternoon. Public session today, a special session, Fresno City Council, 4 p.m., a little late, Wednesday, February 12th, 2014. And I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Number 3 is public hearing for proposed annexation, and I have four speaker forms here. And Mr. Dewey, should we start with the speakers, or should we start with discussion?
Well, I can just provide a little bit of background, if you'd like, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. Last calendar year, the council approved an order. We were presented as a city council with two geographic boundary maps that outline different options and alternatives for an annexation proposal that would extend the city's current boundaries north. Both proposals grab the I-19 Ruby Road interchange. Both proposals seem to take a solid stab at getting us as close to the city's wastewater treatment plant as possible, with managing the cost benefit and the risks tied to annexation. Although one alternative failed to meet one of the council objectives, the first option left out a significant population base in the Chula Vista Pete's Kitchen and Stone Garden area. One of the council's objectives was to, one of the primary objectives with this annexation attempt was to bring, to bring the residents in this area to the north of the city that had current city of Nogales addresses into the city proper. Thought being is that those residents who live, work, and play here in Nogales should have an opportunity to weigh in and participate in the city proper, being through the votes and the ballots and everything that is tied with that. At the end of the day, the council opted for an option 2, which was a geographic area that grabbed all of the residents in the Peña Blanca area, the Chula Vista, Pete's Kitchen, and Stone Garden. Firestone, thank you, Firestone, and then of course it reached the other objectives as well. Based off of that order, staff was directed to proceed taking all necessary steps to pursue annexation per the map that was approved by council at the time. That map has not changed. It's in place today. It's what's been properly noticed to the public through the necessary steps as outlined in the state statute, which brings us here tonight in a required public hearing. We have properly noticed the public in the various forms required by state statute, and the purpose of tonight's public hearing is so that the public that is impacted by the proposed annexation has an opportunity to have questions answered and an opportunity to speak and present their thoughts and or concerns, or again additional comments to the council as you weigh it all out. So if you don't have any further questions for me, we can proceed with the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Jelly. Any questions from the members of the council, Mr. Jelly? No, not yet. Okay. Well, we'll start with speaker forums. We'll start with Lance. Just state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Lance Dunmeyer. I'm the president of the Fresh Produce Association of Americas. We're at 590 East Furnace Road in just north of the Chula Vista neighborhood. And I'm here today representing the Fresh Produce Association of Americas, and I've distributed to you a copy of a letter which was submitted for the record, and I'll read this for the public now. And first of all, I'll recognize and appreciate the call of the public on this, and Mr. Dilly came to our office on Monday and had a nice forum with our members. We appreciate that outreach. Very important. The Fresh Produce Association of Americas appreciates the opportunity to comment on the City of Nogales' proposed annexation of lands as explained in the January 21 letter to area property owners. And while we recognize the right of the city to increase the boundaries in order to meet the changing needs of the populace, we feel there are too many unanswered questions and negative business consequences for this particular proposal to proceed at this time. Among these are the City of Nogales Planning and Zoning Director position is currently vacant. Without a trained professional in this capacity, how can the city adequately and professionally address development issues? The City of Nogales has an unresolved issue regarding its theme of flood insurance. Failure to resolve this may result in certain properties in floodplains losing their flood insurance. Loss of flood insurance could cause defaults with lenders who hold mortgages on properties, and it's not clear how the loss of flood insurance would affect produce warehouses in the proposed annexation area. Many of these warehouses lay in floodplains. The 2% renter's tax stands to dramatically alter the business model of many produce warehouses that have an existing practice of renting their property back to an associated company as well as to other unrelated companies. Considering a representative refrigerated warehouse rental charge per square foot of $10 per year, a company renting a 50,000 square foot facility, which is common size, would see a tax surcharge of $10,000 per year. This would be on top of the City of Nogales business occupation license, which is in excess of $1,000 per year. The next one, which is one that I think really is important, is because of the arbitrary boundaries of the proposed annexation, in considering the renter's tax and the business occupation license, companies within the proposed annexation would be at a business advantage to the competitors who are not being annexed. For instance, an annexed company in the southern part of the Rio Rico industrial complex would find itself at a competitive disadvantage to a similar company in the same industrial complex that happens to be located just outside the proposed annexation. The annexation should not decide winners and losers when it comes to companies' bottom lines. From the standpoint of emergency services, the Rio Rico Industrial Park is currently served by 3 Rio Rico fire stations, which are within a 3 to 5 minute response time on average. The closest Nogales fire station at 2751 North Grand is about a 7 to 8 minute response time. In case of a serious fire or serious injury, every minute counts. Additional damage of hundreds of thousands of dollars could occur over the course of several minutes, including leading to a total loss of the facility. In the case of an injury, every minute can be the difference in saving a life or reducing the extent of disability. While Nogales has a mutual aid program with the Rio Rico Fire Department, one of Nogales' main selling points on the annexation has been that property owners within the proposed annexation would see county fire taxes eliminated. This would inevitably lead to Rio Rico cutting the number of firemen and other resources, and thus would reduce the ability of the community at large to respond to emergencies in a timely and effective manner. The bridge over Old Tucson Road is considered crucial to the movement of fresh produce between companies. This area is also within the proposed annexation. Along with the Army Corps of Engineers, Santa Cruz County has initiated construction on the bridge. Unfortunately, it is the case that many projects encounter unforeseen cost overruns or other impediments. Such a situation could conceivably cause Santa Cruz County to leave construction unfinished, considering the project would no longer be directly under its purview. It is unclear whether the city would be in a financial position to finish construction. The city must publicly state that it intends to see the project completed, no matter the cost or circumstances. To date, the City of Nogales has not committed to spend any of the overweight funds collected from produce crossings on any projects of note for roads that are actually used by these produce trucks. Instead, the City Council voted to use these funds to improve Industrial Park Avenue, which as of this date serves no active produce warehouses. This demonstrates a lack of willingness to use the funds for their stated purpose, and thus owners of produce warehouses have a lack of confidence that the city will properly improve or maintain such roads in the area that is proposed to be annexed. The stated purpose of the northward spur of the proposed annexation is to connect the access road to the city-owned sewage treatment plant to property that is also within the city limits. However, the city has admitted that the access road is within a public easement and has reported no present or threatened obstruction of this access. This part of proposed annexation is therefore creating a solution without a problem and should be abandoned. So the FPA believes in the right of the community to determine its future, and Ferguson Street continues to enjoy a long and successful partnership with the community, including you, Mr. Mayor, and the members of council. Ferguson Street contributes to over 33% of the economic impact in Santa Cruz County and accounts for about 25% of the wages. The proposed annexation in its current form will not help business owners improve upon or expand their businesses. To the contrary, it adds uncertainty at a time when employers are trying to emerge from a recession. FPA believes the city of Nogales should delay annexation plans until it has adequately addressed the above concerns. Thank you for the appreciation.
Let me ask, this is actually not called to the public, and we can discuss this. You mentioned two things. You mentioned the overweight money.
Yes.
How much money has the county spent on your issue?
They have started a project to develop some plans, and they've committed to a plan over the course of 3 years to put some monies towards that Rio Rico Industrial Park. They've showed a plan to the produce warehouses that shows how that money would be spent. Currently, they have used it to improve a few of the interchanges within there. On
In the
Kipper,
industrial,
there's
in the
one
industrial area?
in the industrial area, yes.
Kipper and Acapulco.
Which
Kipper
one?
and Acapulco.
Yeah. So if annexation was possible and it would happen, wouldn't Nogales be the county seat? Wouldn't the Nogales be the county seat, like we are right now?
Yes.
Okay, so we have supervisors that divide the county in 3 sections. So they would be able to use the money whichever way they want to. And the flood district, we talked about the bridge being abandoned on Tucson Highway. Why would it be abandoned if it's, the money is flood district money that's doing it?
Well, the project
It's
is
paid by,
already.
wait a minute, it's paid by every resident of the city of Nogales right now, property tax,
Mhm.
for a bridge in the county. So we have to be partners. You know, we don't have foresight to look at the future. You know, if we just put blinders and not look at anything, the 3 annexations that were created, or were actually conducted in the past, that puts Nogales right now at 25 square miles, wouldn't be happening. Wouldn't have happened. City limits was actually right at Zulus, and it did not go past Western Avenue. 3 mayors, 3 councils, leaders of Nogales did 3 annexations that put us where we're at right now. I sat on a table at a State of the City address not too long ago that all the mayors in the table that I was sitting around were going after annexation in their communities. One of them is going after state land to annex, and that's Sahuarita. You have to look, you have to have foresight, you have to try to improve. You know, I can understand it, and you say firefighters will lose their jobs. I don't know how they're gonna lose their jobs, Lance. I don't know if it means that because they lose the district money. That's not the plan we have. You know, it's it's unbelievable coming from the Fresh Produce Association that those are the reasons you think we should abandon annexation.
If I can clarify, we didn't say that you should abandon it, but we do feel that these concerns need to be addressed before.
They will be
before we
addressed. You also
proceed.
say we don't have a planning and zoning director. Mr. Dilly's in the process of selecting a person. You know, we put it out there. We just haven't gotten, Mr. Tapia got selected to the planning and zoning director to go to work in Goodyear. He got a good job over there, better job than what he had here. So those points you put out to me for, when it comes to annexation, is kind of, it would seem that you would be supporting something like this for the future and the growth of the economy of our city, especially in the corridor that we're in right now. We need to build these partnerships, you know, but, you know, it's the way I feel, Lance. Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, Lance, a question. FEMA flood insurance, that's county business. The county is the one that does all of the flood district. The city has nothing to do with it. It's the county that does it. So why would FEMA go against the city? If it's the county that handles all flood,
I've been told that this is
Who told
a
you?
city matter.
Who told you?
I've heard it from several people.
Okay, well, if you look at your taxes, it says the city collects no taxes at all, doesn't collect one penny on flood insurance or in flood district money. If you look, it's the county collects for the flood district. Okay, so we don't collect any money, we don't even have a direct connection to FEMA, because we have to go through the county, that's the way it is. So it's, if the county redoes the mapping with FEMA, we actually don't have any. I mean, we spent $50,000 one time, and I think the Fresh Produce Association joined us, trying to fight the FEMA and with the county, and it turned out to be nothing on it. So I would assume that they would have done it. Also, the 2% rental tax, you know, ask your accountant how that works. Okay, I'm sure that there's a lot of businesses in town, there's a lot of produce businesses in town. Ask them how that works, right? I mean, you know, I don't wanna give you advice on it, but I mean, that's you know, it's an accounting deal. You know, I would have thought that maybe, I don't know, maybe we should have all gotten together and even think about the Fresh Produce Association being against it, especially when a lot of the things that come out here really should have been studied. Somebody should have asked these questions, right? Somebody should know. I mean, the city has no property tax, do you know that?
I do know that, yes.
You do know, okay, fine. You do know that in the, because of the fire district, your property tax would go down. Did you know that?
That has been explained, yes. It's not clear how much exactly that would go
Right.
down per company. And that's part of the confusion as to what the actual business impact is on people. And I think one of the major concerns is that because it sort of divides the fresh produce industry, some of it's taken, some of it's not, you create some business distinctions among different companies that might allow one to be in a better
Is there
position.
no distinction now with the people that do have warehouses inside the city limits? How about the distinction with all the warehouses going up on Mariposa Road that are inside the city limits? Should we now discuss a distinction for them, or eliminate, do something completely different with every warehouse that's outside city limits?
Those businesses have chosen to be there for certain reasons, including proximity to port, and they've looked at the city's plans and agree with that. And in general, we are very supportive of the city, and we, as I stated in the letter, we do respect the right of the city to expand upon itself. We do feel some of these questions need to be answered.
But basically, you're asking that the city warehouses inside the city limits and the warehouses outside the city limits should be completely separate on many items? Have you discussed this with the people that are inside the warehouses inside the city limits?
The companies that are already within the city, they've chosen to be there, or they were brought into a much earlier annexation. The matter today is the proposed annexation.
As far as I remember, a lot of the warehouses that are in Rio Rico, it wasn't a choice. It was because there was no land available here to meet their needs, right? We're just trying to make that. I mean, you know, there's also the deal of a sewer. I mean, should we go ahead and deny everybody in the county sewer? Should we do that?
I think you need to ask these people.
No, I'm asking you because you're the one that brought it up. I mean, should we make huge distinctions on everything now? Does the city of Tucson, when they annexed, did they attempt to make huge distinctions between the people that were right outside the city limits and the people that were inside the city?
I'm not aware of what the city of Tucson has done or not done, but I can state that the feedback I'm bringing you, the comments I'm making, do represent the sentiments of the majority of the members that are affected within this area.
The majority of the members that have warehouses outside the city limits.
Correct.
Go ahead. Are we here to call to the public?
This is not called to the public. It's a discussion item.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate your comments, because, you know, when we first started on this, I was told that we were in competition with Rio Rico, maybe incorporating, we'd be fighting these annexation territories. Apparently Rio Rico's doesn't have any plans to incorporate or annex in the near future. I have questions now about, are we ready to take this annexation? Because, you know, the city of Nogales, as far as I see, we're gonna take on some added responsibility. And I want to make sure this administration makes it clearly to everyone that we can handle those costs that are gonna be occurring for the city. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we provide those services out there. But we need to continue to provide the services here in Nogales, the ones that we need to do on a daily basis. So I don't see a rush anymore as far as running with the ball. And what you're saying is give us a little more time to study things. And is that what you're saying with this?
Yes, indeed, that is what we're suggesting.
And I appreciate that because I take a stand with you, I believe that. I think we need a little more time. I don't see anything coming in this corridor, the trade corridor, that's gonna be immediate. And we still have a couple of years to line up with it. And I believe that a couple of years will probably help the city get in a more financial sound state to provide those services. So I appreciate what you say, or what you're saying, because I think a couple of years down the road, I think we'd probably be better to handle everything and have a better study that's going to impact the city and the surrounding area that's going to be annexed. So thank you very much for those comments that you brought up.
Well, Councilman,
Thank
go ahead and take a seat. In reference to the remarks the councilman made, we didn't sit here to discuss this last time we voted on this, because we voted on this already, Councilman, right? You voted for it too.
Yes.
Okay. And you like to change your mind quite a few times. But this is the thing.
Well, we're supposed to be in like a
No,
study.
this is the thing, listen, this is the thing. When we discussed it last time, we talked about issues about how to run it, or we were gonna need any more officers or any firefighters. We talked about the services. Mr. Dilly explained that to us, that yes, we could. We could maintain that area. We already have services there. We have sewer there. We don't have water, that's why I read the water. We don't have no problems with water issues. So it would just be sanitation and be police protection and fire protection. And as it is right now, we can respond to the Chula Vista, E-Kitchen area and all those areas within 3 minutes. And the ones that respond to them is Tupac right now. And it takes 20 minutes for them to respond. So when it comes to looking at different services, you have to look at the wide scope of the city. Because, and in reference, Lance talked about the bridge. If Nogales was to annex, the bridge is still gonna be built by the same people. By the flood district money, by the Army Corps of Engineers, and jointly with the county and the city. So those things are not even part of the discussion. We voted on annexation. Actually, even though it says on our agenda, discussion, possible action, we voted on this already. The next vote we have to do is after the signatures are taken care of, and it's up to the people if they want to be part of it. If they don't want to be part of it, well, they can make a decision on their own. It takes 1 year to get the signatures. And that's the year that you maybe discussed that maybe we can see if we can possibly manage to do this. But you have to remember, there's share revenue funds that come to cities when they annex. So it's not gonna be money coming out of our pocket, we'll be getting money in for this area.
Well, let's get all the information we can.
But those are the things we have to look at. We discussed this in the last meeting, when we make the vote, when you voted for it.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
But we need to discuss it clearly.
Due all respect, I voted against it.
I know you did.
Okay, you said the council voted for it.
No, I said.
The reasons why I brought up was, if we can take our own backyard, how can we go out and take our businesses outside the city limits? We have, right now, we have one garbage truck, they rotate picking up garbage. The two crews, they pick up the garbage in the morning, then they come back, the other crew comes back in the afternoon and gets the same truck. I mean, and I know that we're gonna purchase some trucks and just gonna fix everything up. But I would like it in writing from the department heads, that they can do it without any more personnel to the departments, and in writing from each department head, if that's the case.
That's Mr. Dilly's responsibility as a city manager, so, you know. So we'll go to the next person. Mr. Paul Brecker? State your name and your address, please, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good,
Yeah.
considering tomorrow will be 2 weeks since I had a heart operation. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Bracker. I want to thank you all for allowing the public to speak on the proposed annexation. My question to the council and to the mayor, of course, is just to make sure that they realize the additional funds from this city that will have to go towards this annexation. We're talking about expenses. I know that you've mentioned police, and fire department, and there are other expenses that we probably will not even mention here. But the last time that there was a big, I consider, decision made in this county, of which Nogales used to have, I don't know, 2/3 of the population of this county, and I'm talking about the new jail. Nobody really did the work on figuring what it was going to cost the people of this county. And at the present time, it is costing this county well over $2 million a year to house prisoners that have come from all over the place, when an expenditure, in my opinion, could have been made for $5-6 million, perhaps even less than that, to make the facilities that we had enough to cover what we had to cover. So, one other item that also goes with expenditures is the maintenance of streets. The city of Nogales in the last 2 or 3 years has done quite a bit as far as streets in this community are concerned. But the street to West Meadow Hills, Potrero, is horrible, worse than horrible. And I'm sure that there are many other streets in Nogales that are just as bad or worse. So it seems to me that if the city can't maintain the city streets, what are they going to do with all this land and all the expenses, the streets, and every other thing that goes into maintaining? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We made, as a community, as a county, a horrible, horrible economic decision just a few years ago that is going to haunt this county for many, many years to come. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Brecker, could I answer?
Sure.
Remain recorded. You know, in reference to the streets, you mentioned that, yes, we've done a lot of work. We've done over $13 million in the past 3 years of paving in Nogales. Something that hasn't been seen in Nogales in many, many years. You know, and yes, we do have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of roads to do. But it wasn't this administration. It wasn't the past 6 administrations it was probably the past 8, 9 administrations in the past, that they should have started paving. Because some of the streets we are paving right now, the last time they were paved was 60 years ago, okay? So, for us to look at that and say, well, you're not maintaining or you have a lot of work, yes, we do have a lot of work to do. But you know that Tucson is trying to collect over $3 billion to pave their streets because all their streets are bad too. But I wish there would have been continuation, administration after administration like it should be, to be able to continue doing this. But there's share revenue funds. I'll mention it again when you annex. There'll be more rooftops, there'll be more people, there'll be more land. We'll get more HERF money. All those things come along with this. And it could be anywhere from 600,000 to 700,000. I don't know yet. There's numbers up there going a year that we'll be receiving. And for what I understand, it's probably going to take about $350,000 to maintain that with police protection and sanitation and road services per year. So that means that there would be a surplus of the share revenue funds that could go into the budget to continue working for the whole city. Mr. Recker, you should know better.
Excuse me, I'm not finding fault with this administration. As a matter of fact, if you remember, I just said that this administration, so forth, in the last 2 to 3 years, whatever, has done quite a bit.
Yes.
But there's still a lot to go.
Yes, I can understand.
And that's what I'm thinking about.
And that's why we can't lose vision of our city. We can't lose vision of growth. We have to grow also. And economically, I think growth in our city is important for people to come to look at our city and say, you know what, this is improvement. You know, the warehouses that are being built, like the Vice Mayor said previously, you know, I don't think we had a warehouse built here in the past 10 years in the city limits. In the city limits, all right? And so, to get the warehouses, to get the businesses that are coming up right now, those are good indicators that Nogales is doing well. And I think annexing is something that
You're optimistic, and I sure
I have
hope,
to be, sir.
I just hope that, you know, that it comes true.
I have to.
That's all I know is that $45 million or whatever, you know,
On the
was put on
jail.
the shoulders of this county.
Yeah, the jail, wasn't it
And
voted on?
apparently, you know, they didn't do their work. Maybe you all have. I hope you have.
Yeah, but I think, wasn't the jail a referendum, a vote?
No, they voted. It was voted.
The
Yeah,
community
but
voted.
the people that promoted it and so forth didn't do their homework.
I understand. Yes, President.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like in everything, we're gonna have expenses. But nobody seems to be mentioning, the mayor did, you know, what we're gonna be getting out of this. Obviously, the HERF fund will go up. Obviously, the money the state sends us will go up. All those things will tend to go up, and then we will have the ability to directly discuss putting up truck stops or hotels or whatever because of the sewer. But we can directly discuss this with everybody instead of having to go to a second party for them to deal with that. A lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to deal with a second party that could get in trouble or not, right? So, you know, you can see what's happening on Mariposa Road, right? I think there's something going on. I mean, we could take the attitude of Tucson and Pima County and float $100 million bond issue to repair the streets. This is to repair. In Pima County, they're doing it to repair, $100 million to repair, not put in new streets or to completely redo a street, just to fill in the potholes, $100 million. I mean, we could vote on that, and then everybody's gonna be saying, you know, all they wanna do is get more money, more money, more money. So the city is doing as much as they can. I think we're doing a very good job if we compare us to anybody else in the whole state of Arizona or anywhere else with like you said, we paved, you know, a lot of streets. Maybe 20 years ago, there should have been a plan to be doing this. But we've got a plan that we're gonna be discussing, you know, 5, 6 more streets that are gonna be paved in Nogales this year, right? We're trying to get it. ADOT has gone ahead, they're gonna repave, the Grand Avenue up to past Walgreens there, right? I mean, all this, you know, will help out. You saw what ADOT is doing with Mariposa Road, the rest of the state. So, but we're gonna get more money coming in. You know, I'm basically a person of money that get the money, you know. You can see, if you sit down, and we can sit down and go through all the different money, the 3,000 more people we bring in. This is from the state, from the federal government. And we've already got it set up. If we were starting with zero, yeah, it would cost us a lot of money. But we've already got all this stuff ready. The police department's all ready, fire department's all ready, our sewer is all ready. You know, all these things are ready, so we're not starting at zero. We don't have to put money up for everything. So at least, like I said, we can sit down and go through the whole deal. I think you will realize, unlike the jail or something like that, you know, this is money, unless the state decides to change the plan. And then again, the federal government can change the plan too. But I mean, if we check it, you'll see that there should be more than enough money to cover what we're gonna need, right? And I would love to get together with you and, you know, I'll buy lunch.
I'll hold you.
My dollar.
I'll hold you to that.
My dollar, not the city dollar, my dollar.
Thank you.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Ray.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have a question there about the figures. Just in the Bible.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I guess he was mentioning 3,000 more people coming into the annexation. Where do you get those 3,000 people? Then you're talking about 100 million from a community that's how many times larger than?
Mr. Dilly, how many more people will come into the city limits on the annexation?
1,500, is it? 15 or 18?
We estimate that the population count added through this proposed annexation is roughly 1,345.
1,300. That's less than 50% of what you just mentioned.
Right.
If we're gonna be giving information out here to the public, just give it right. Let's not be putting out numbers that don't exist.
Sure, but we're not gonna live on 1,300 for the next 20 years. Somewhere along the line, we gotta figure that out. It's all gonna change.
The point is, let's
You know, we're gonna have
be
areas that are gonna
upfront and
change.
honest with everyone here.
Okay, we
Well,
got
that's
one
what
more
we wanna
speaker.
have.
Okay, let's be civil about this. Les P. Cade. State your name and your address, please, for the record.
Good afternoon, Les P. Cade. I'm the fire chief for Rio Rico Fire District, 822 Pendleton Drive, Rio Rico, Arizona. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Dilly, Mr. Machado, thank you very much for allowing me to come up and speak today. I know this is a very emotional issue. I'm listening, I'm hearing the issues that are being brought up from the public, and as a citizen, I have concerns, but I will speak only as a representative of fire and EMS, which is my expertise. I've spent 25 years with the City of Tucson Fire Department. I understand annexation. I understand the city has to grow. My listening to this today and what I've looked at, again, I want to make mention that has nothing to do with the men and women of the Nogales Fire Department. This has nothing to do with the men and women that serve Nogales Police. This has to do with the impacts, and the impacts that Sir Isaac Newton, I think, once said in his third law of physics is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And the impacts of what an annexation will do, what they will do not only to Rio Rico Fire District, but to the overall balance of fire and EMS in Santa Cruz County. I'm just not convinced that the city has shown their due diligence in these impacts. And I'm talking on the fire and EMS component and the needs when they're looking at annex. If I'm not mistaken, again, the city right now is approximately a 10 square mile area. Is that correct? And they're looking to add another 5 square miles in that annexation.
It's 25
20,
okay. Square miles.
25 square
Something
miles.
like that, 27.
And the size of the annexation is how big?
Roughly 10.
Roughly 10. So they're looking to add roughly a third, more or less, and I wasn't a math major. However, without supplying services to that area for fire and EMS. And that's a grave concern to me. there's a lot to be said when you talk about infrastructure. Yeah, there's flooding issues. You know, we've told our citizens, do your homework. It's important. It's their decision. It's the citizens' decision on whether they want to annex or not. But they've got to do their homework on the effects of the flood issue and the effects of fire and EMS. Chula Vista area does not have fire hydrants at this time. Nogales Suburban has water tenders. Rio Rico, because we serve an area very much that's rural, we have invested in the apparatus, the water tender, to bring the water supply to that fire. That's a huge expense that if you're not ready for that, that's money that has to come out of your pocket. So when I hear rumblings that, oh, you know, we don't have to put any more resources in place, that's a major concern for me. Annexation, to me at this point, looks like cherry picking. And I know you don't like that word, but it's going up into the warehouse district. Taxpayer mixes to pay a levy depend on, for a fire district, both commercial and residential, to offset the cost of providing the resources to respond to a fire, or an EMS, or a hazmat call, or a drowning, or whatever it might be. And those resources cost money. Those resources are currently in place. However, with that annexation taking away a good chunk of money, and in a meeting with Mr. Dilly on November 4th, he talked about the city eventually annexing all the way up to Garrett's and all the way through the warehouse district. And again, without consideration of those effects to providing service for the residents that live there. A fire district, again, depends on the mix of payers to be able to support those resources. That's always a concern. Fire district taxes were brought up. They could be lowered, yes, they wouldn't pay a levy. However, all the individuals that would be annexed by the city that live in Rio Rico currently are still going to be obligated to pay the taxes for the bond that they approved in 2007. They're still going to be obligated for that. So I'm asking the residents once again, excuse me, to do their due diligence and look at all the issues that we're bringing up. Also, it concerned me that someone had said, well, we'll respond to this area mutual aid. We'll just, you know, we've got a mutual aid agreement. That's something that both Tubac Fire District, the Rio Rico Fire District took years to push through with the city to agree to a formal mutual aid agreement. The firefighters always responded to each other regardless. We understand how important that is. But now we're hearing, well, they'll just annex the area, and then if there's a big fire, we'll respond and call for mutual aid. Mutual aid doesn't work that way. Mutual aid is only mutual if resources are available for that response. If we're losing dollars, and the fire district has lost 38% of our revenue over the last 5 years. However, we've been very fiscally responsible. We're working on a biodiesel program. We've purchased apparatus that are much more economical. You know, our firefighters have not had raises for over 2 years. They're working the best they can within the fiscal confines. So here comes the city looking like, oh, we're just going to come through, gut your district, and that's a real concern, because if we don't have mutual aid, which we've responded twice as much to the city of Nogales for mutual aid as they have responded to us. That's just the physics of it. They've been calling, we go. The same thing happens if we call them, they come to us, but they've called twice as much. So are we going to be called to the annexed area to respond to something that was now the city's responsibility? That's a big concern to us. Rio Rico, again, has been very proactive. We've been providing bike safety. We've been writing grants for bike safety for our kids. We've been giving out bike helmets. We've been pushing education on injury prevention. We've been pushing working with the schools Fire Safety Day, car seat education, again, because we are part of the community. And we have a very, very big concern about this annexation because of that.
I'm just gonna respond to two of your, how far do you respond? Do you respond to Chula Vista?
I'm sorry?
Do you respond to Chula Vista?
If it was called for mutual aid, we would, yes,
Only if it's called for mutual aid.
right.
Yeah. Do you respond to Pete Kitchen, Firestone Gardens?
If they call for mutual aid, yes, and we have the resources available. The
Hold
mutual
on, wait a minute.
aid only
Where
works
do
if
you
there's
respond in
resources
the area of
available.
annexation?
I'm sorry?
Where do you respond on the area of annexation without mutual aid?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
On the annexation part, on option
If
two.
annexation took place,
Yeah, what areas do you respond to right now? Just
Pina
the west
Blanca
frontage road?
Highlands, all through the warehouse district, pilot, all along Ruby Road.
So it's only about a third of the area that's being annexed that you respond to? Without mutual aid? Is it correct or not?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but I'm not sure where you're going with this,
Peña
Mr.
Blanca
Mayor.
Heights, the Peña Blanca area, and you said the industrial park.
Correct.
The rest of the area you do not respond to. Two-back fire responds to the rest, does it?
No, that's not correct. We respond
But
for
only
mutual
you
aid
said mutual
requests.
aid.
Pardon me?
You said mutual aid.
Yes, on a mutual aid
Okay, but
response.
not, you don't respond if they call.
Sir, if the call, I guess it's semantics.
Yeah.
So if Suburban, for example, has an emergency and they need help, they call the sheriff's
Yeah,
office.
it's kind of like when
And-
they need,
and we would
they
respond.
ask us and we respond too, I believe. It's the
Correct.
same way, yeah. And then you said about fire hydrants in Chula Vista, that there's no fire hydrants, and we would take that, that cost ourselves. The water does not belong to the city of Nogales and Chula Vista, it belongs to Valle Verde Water, and it would be a cost to Valle Verde Water to install infrastructure for fire.
Sir, what I'm saying is right now and into the future, until you build any kind of infrastructure, you have to have water at the scene to fight that fire. Nogales Fire at this time does not have a water tender. Those water tenders cost anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 apiece. Currently, Nogales Suburban has 2 of those water tenders. Rio Rico has 3 water tenders. However, again, that's the mutual aid. We built the infrastructure planned on what we respond to. That infrastructure's already been paid for. If annexation takes place, now there's kind of double taxation from the fact that Nogales has to go out and buy other pieces of apparatus to cover an area that's now being annexed and pay for those pieces of equipment, which were actually in place with the fire district that's already serving that area.
Yeah, so remember the last 2 big warehouse fires on Old Tucson Highway, the Suburban Fire District took water from where I live in Villahermosa, so, because there is no fire hydrants, and they were coming all the way to Villahermosa and then going back. And our fire department responded to those 2 warehouses to fight those fires.
Correct, and the only way they were able to transport that water was with a water tender,
Yes.
which Nogales does not have.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Fred Johnson?
Yes.
State your name and your address, please, for the record.
My name is Fred Johnson. I live at 487 Feather Court in Rio Rico. Except for 1 year since 1990, I have lived in Rio Rico. And my concerns are the effect, especially that this annexation would have on the future growth and development of a commercial area in Rio Rico, which would be centered probably around exit 17 and that general area. And I think if this annexation takes place and goes beyond Ruby Road, I think it's going to interfere with the ability of Rio Rico to grow a commercial district in the future, and I think that's something that's very important for the whole region. The population in Rio Rico is sufficient to support that sort of thing. And I think they ought to have the opportunity to expand into that without interference from Nogales. To me, the area around Chula Vista and the Peñabaca area is a natural expansion, and I don't have a problem with that in any way. To me, that makes good sense. But to go beyond Ruby Road, to take over the pilot and part of the Rio Rico Industrial Park, that is such a key element in the economy of Santa Cruz County, as well as Nogales, that I think it's important that we protect that and allow it to grow and prosper. I think to divide the produce area into those who are part of the city and those who are part of the county, when they have been in the county from the beginning, I think would interfere with the future growth and the prosperity of that group. And I think that's something we should try to avoid. So I think that the reasonable place to draw that line would probably be at Ruby Road. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
If I might, it might address a statement that Chief Cade made and in the comments that we just heard. The voters of the city of Nogales, when they approved the city's general plan, community general plan, along with that, established a municipal planning boundary. Okay, basically, that's a statement in the business of running a city. That's a public statement to the rest of the world that says, hey, this is where the residents, property owners of a community see their future and their potential. That boundary, that municipal planning area is, hey, this is where we see our sphere of influence. This is what our future is all about. And that planning boundary doesn't grab exit 17. It comes up towards exit 17, but it doesn't grab exit 17. It doesn't grab Garrett's. It doesn't grab anything that would be considered a commercial corridor up in that area. But it certainly does go beyond north beyond Ruby Road. And this is put in place by the voters of our community, and a communication piece to our city council and city administration in terms of where the residents see our future. That boundary didn't go to the west, didn't go to the east, didn't go south, right? It went north, and so I think that's an important distinction to make in terms of what really is in the forethought of any city when they're looking to do an annexation. The boundary that's been proposed today, well, actually was proposed way back when you guys approved the order, is a boundary that was very specific in accomplishing certain goals that were established by the council at that time. Again, I reiterate the point that we only went north, past that commercial corridor on the interchange of I-19 and Ruby Road, because one of the objectives that council had, and it makes a lot of sense, the city invested some $60 million to build a wastewater treatment plant, and the city wants to have that located within its incorporated limits proper. The council said we want to get as close as we can to that massive investment that benefits far more people than just what lives in the city of Nogales. Rio Rico benefits, and our partners to the south benefit from that wastewater treatment plant. The idea was to get as close as we can to that, and we had a lot of dialogue as to why we couldn't grab it in this particular attempt for annexation. I just wanted to make it clear as to what some of the driving forces have been for an annexation and why it turned out the way it did in this run.
Thank you, Mr. Dilly. Next speaker, Chuck Thomas. State your name and your address for the records.
Chuck Thomas, I live in Vista del Cielo, Nogales, but I own Thomas Produce on Frontage Road in Rio Rico. Thanks for having me. Council members, Mr. Mayor. Most of the issues I wanted to talk about have already been discussed here. One thing you were talking about, Shane, is the encompassing of the wastewater treatment facility, which I understand the investment the city's put into that. But since that didn't go through and you left in this 16 pieces of property, commercial property, including the pilot north of Ruby Road, I'm a little confused about why. I can understand the pilot and the tax income and all that sort of thing. But there are 15 produce, mostly commercial facilities, properties, north of the pilot on that one little finger right there. My question, if I can ask a question, is this a final yes or no? We vote for everything, or we take out this little piece? Is that what it's come to at this point of the game? And I don't see, I'm trying to see what the real benefit to myself as a produce company owning a partial, rather large parcel in that area would be, as opposed to any negatives. The emergency response thing is a big concern of mine because we're in an industrial area with a lot of industrial equipment. I've seen trucks back up and actually take off legs, people falling off pallet jacks getting run over, this type of thing. And we talked about emergency response times, and it'd be 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. There's a lot of difference in what can happen in those 4 or 5 minutes of response time to someone's life or death. So that's a really big response, of course fire response too. And then some issues that the chief talked about for some really large investments the city would have to make in order to alleviate some of those problems and response times, I think. I don't know what my benefits, maybe you could explain to me how I can benefit as a produce warehouse from being in that area and why that strip of land is still important because of what was brought up about the access being open no matter what. I mean, why would that strip of land need to be annexed? And I see no problem with the city wanting to grow and the ability to annex these property. I agree with what Fred said a few minutes ago about Ruby Road being a natural annexation line. And I can see encompassing both those corners, the one undeveloped and the pilot corner, for retail and that type of thing. But again, and the only question I really have is what benefit do you actually see in those 15 parcels of land to the city, and what benefit I could actually receive from the city by agreeing to that?
Mr. Members of Council, sir, I appreciate you coming forward asking those questions. The reason why that jaunt, or I guess it's been commonly referred to as a finger on this proposed annexation, is the way that it is because under statutory requirements you have to have some what's the word? Continuity? No. Contiguous. Thank you. Contiguous property, and you have to have contiguous incorporated properties of a certain distance in order to move forward in a future annexation. And so by positioning that that jaunt up to the north, it positions the city very well to be able to grab our wastewater treatment plant in a second attempt for annexation. So we couldn't do it in this run. Otherwise, we would have. I promise you that was one of the objectives of the council. But it does situate the city very, very well to be able to go for another annexation in the future to grab that wastewater treatment plant. So that's why that went. If that didn't go up there, then it would make that proposition all the more difficult. And so that's why that line was drawn the way that it was, and in response to requirements set forth in the Arizona State statute.
Is there a certain number of properties that have to lead up to that? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a distance. There has to be, you have to have a certain distance of
Proximity.
well, there's a length plus width requirement, but you have to have a certain distance of common boundary with an already existing incorporated limit. And so that jaunt was very important for us to be able to grab that wastewater treatment plant in a round 2 for annexation.
Okay. And the benefits I might receive as opposed to the negatives on this annexation for my property?
I I don't know what property you have, I don't know the assessed value. I mentioned, you know, I've had an opportunity to visit with the Fresh Produce Association yesterday, and what it really boils down to is each property owner doing their homework in terms of identifying to what extent this either is a plus or a minus. I did talk to that group as candidly as I could about the fact that they're, I know that as a business, the bottom line is incredibly important, but I argued that it isn't the only thing that's important to a business or should be important to a business. You know, you know, there's employees that you have to consider. You know, a community like Nogales offers a far better balance of life in terms of recreational opportunities, work, live, and play, I guess, scenario than you would find. And I think this is stereotypical of any incorporated area that you want to compare to an unincorporated area. Communities tend to, or incorporated cities tend to be able to provide a more balanced quality of life than you can find outside. So as you know, as a business wraps themselves up in terms of being a community partner and being a part of that, they also are a part of providing their employees with a better place to live, work, and play. And part of a community is not just rooftops. It's commercial, you know, it's visitors, it's industrial, it's the balanced use of the properties that fall within an incorporated limit. So I know that it's, the drive is to say, okay, how do we quantify this? But I also talk to the intrinsic value. And I think that that's evident, sir, in you know, as you compare how the community of Nogales has developed versus how properties outside of the city of Nogales has developed. Two totally different you know, paradigms in terms of the development. And you'll find that right, wrong, or indifferent, I know that everybody has an opinion on this. What is clear is that properties within a municipal area, you know, tend to, you know, you look at where the center of commercial activity is for Santa Cruz County. You know, it's not in, it's not in Sonoyta, you know, it's not in Rio Rico, it's in Nogales, and you'll find that common if you look at any of the cities and towns across the state of Arizona as compared to what's happening in the unincorporated parts. It's more like the unincorporated parts tend to be a draw for the homes, but the incorporated parts tend to be a draw for you know, commercial development and industrial development, parks and recreation, things like that. So one of the things I spoke to was, I know businesses that are very proud to be a part of a community, be a part of, you know, sponsoring a recreational facility, being a part of businesses that make a community whole. And I just, you know, I think that there's an intrinsic value as well that needs to be considered. And I tried to speak to the Fresh Produce Association about that. But at the bottom line, sir, it really is a property owner doing their homework. There's going to be a give and take. It was accurately mentioned today that the city has established business license fees. That's in place. It is also a fact that your property taxes will go down. Now, at what point in time does that balance out? It all comes down to your particular situation and where you're at. So it's hard for me to answer the bottom line question for you.
One comment I have to what you just said is the sense of community, because I've lived both in Rio Rico and now live in Nogales for several years, but
Sure.
I think Rio Rico also has a very strong sense of community.
Very, very
too,
strong.
And I've been very involved in various youth organizations and charities and all sorts of things in both Nogales and Rio Rico, so that's, I don't know about that part of your argument, but
Sure.
I appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for Mr. Dilly
Yes,
here
sir.
in response. I know that Nogales has dropped the ball in the past with a hospital that we needed so much, and that always brings a lot of people industry. And we also had the transit system that we also didn't go through with. And now, recently, we've had the PD that, you know, we could have had that building over here where Pat Beck was, and it would have kind of helped the chief there and all the staff. But the thing is that those problems are still there, and we have to address them in the near future. And I think those are, at this point, you keep putting emphasis on the wastewater treatment plant. Is it, now, are we gonna get ownership of that, or, I know that the federal government and the State Department is involved there, and their counterpart in Mexico. Can you give us a breakdown on the ownership of that?
Forgive me, sir, but it was the council that placed emphasis on grabbing the wastewater treatment plant in this annexation. It wasn't,
Well, can you give us some, can you give the public some information on that?
Sure. Sure, the city owns it.
Okay. And then, what is a part of the State Department and the counterpart in Mexico?
The Department of State, through contract with the city, operates the wastewater treatment plant.
Could I ask one question on that? You just said part of your emphasis in taking those 15, 16 parcels was to encompass eventually the wastewater treatment plant. But your comment right now is that the city already owns the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, we do.
So you already have that in the city?
No, it's not in our city, it's not in our city limits.
It's owned by the city,
Yes, sir.
but it's not part of the city? Okay. A little confusing. Okay,
It's out of the county, but it belongs to the city.
okay.
It's like the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kathy Campana, is it? State your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of this council. My name is Kathy Campana. I live at 1520 Pendleton in Rio Rico. I am president of Board of Realtors and a member of the Chamber Board of Directors. I'm here because I feel that Rio Rico is finally establishing a strong community identity. I think that it is progressing rapidly, and I don't want to see that die before they've had a chance. I don't see a benefit to Rio Rico in incorporating up to the extent that has been proposed. There are many cities that have sewage treatment plants outside their city limits. There is absolutely no requirement that it be within the boundaries of the city. It looks like leapfrog annexation. You're going over a huge open area that has the potential for development in order to take in development. This is not a good planning measure. This appears to be totally leapfrog and totally without the necessary infill and infrastructure that would allow for adequate protection and services being provided. Why should cops and fire department have to drive 2 or 3 miles through open space to finally get to a building? It does not make sense to me. It's very inefficient, and whether or not it's part of this sphere of influence that was adopted, that does not mean that it has to be annexed. Obviously, the people that identify with Nogales, Pete's Kitchen, Chula Vista, Meadow Hills, if they want to be in Nogales, that's their zip code, that's their address, that's what they tell people. I live at whatever, Nogales. I don't. I would have moved here if I wanted a Nogales address, and it sounds like sooner or later you're going to try for that. I see no cost benefit to the people in Nogales. In fact, I think that it's a bit of a drain on your resources if there isn't some other method of raising money. Road maintenance is going to be a very big factor. And I drive around Rio Rico and Nogales, and all of the roads need to be fixed. We're talking a great deal of money. I don't see that annexing is going to get that road work done any faster. I think that at this point, the residents in Nogales or who are a part of the annexed area are going to see an increased cost in the flood insurance based upon the fact that they're rating is different than what it is for the county. The same goes for the ISO rating for their fire insurance. They may pay on their taxes for the flood district, but it's a whole separate issue than flood insurance. They may pay on their taxes for fire districts, but it's a whole separate issue from the ongoing expense of paying for insurance. I don't think it's going to benefit the residents of the city, except those of you who really want to be a part of it. I think that, personally, if you're going to annex those areas that already consider themselves Nogales. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more, Dora Madrid.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Garino. Thank you, City Council, for giving us the opportunity to speak in this open call to the public. I'm here today to represent the people of Chula Vista. We, the residents of the Chula Vista Estates, we are expressing rejection at this moment for this annexation because we do need more information. We need more information than what was mailed out to us. The frequent questions that were given to us don't address anything that was ever spoken right now. One of the questions is, how many animals can I keep on my property? So it's things, important things that need to be put out on this letter, and not a lot of the people receive this in the Chula Vista area. Therefore, we are requesting more details before any other annexation takes place. We would like to have some vote or some say in it as well. As one of the residents, I really wish to remain a resident of the Santa Cruz County for the time being. I want the City Council to ask for my approval if I am going to be paying anything more regarding this annexation. So I have some names here of some people and who are joining us today that we need more information before any annexation takes place and thus given being part of the city.
Well, I can answer that. It takes a year to get the signatures. We don't do it like right now. It's going to be you that makes the decision. We vote on it as legislators, but it's you. If you don't sign on to it, it's not annexed. Okay, so it's not us doing it. We're asking if you want to be part of the city. That is all annexation means. So during the process of asking for your signature, because you have to be a property owner. It's 50% plus one, not a renter.
Exactly.
If you accept at that moment the person that's circulating that opportunity for you to sign on if you want to, that's the person that will answer probably all the questions you have. Because not all the questions can be asked. About the animals, yes, you can have more animals. You can have horses in the city. It's open range. We have cows in Memorial Park. Yes, you can. Okay, so don't, but I mean, what I'm saying is that it's a year. It's a year process. It's not something that's gonna happen tomorrow or the day after. So, so until the city of Nogales receives 50% plus one of the vote of the people that live within that area, and over 50% of the property value of that area, will it be annexed? Otherwise, it won't.
Our property values have been so low.
No, but that doesn't mean that your property value is gonna go up. 50% of the property value. If the whole property in that annexed area is $10 million, we need to show that $5 million of property and signatures come in line together. Otherwise, it won't get annexed. So it's you that annexes it. You know, we're offering an opportunity. So I know your concerns. I know everybody's concerns. But we're offering an opportunity to be part of the city. And if you don't want to be part of the city, and you decide not to, well, you would not be part of the city.
And that is why I'm here, I'm just
Yeah.
asking for that right, for us to decide if we
Yes.
wish to, being it that we are the affected people, affected residents.
Yeah, and you will be the people that will make the final decision, yes.
And more communication than.
Yes, yes, and no, and that's gonna be presented at the time when the opportunity is there to circulate the opportunity for you to sign. And naturally, our city hall is open and for anybody to ask any questions, but, we have standard development codes, counties has building codes, we all have different codes that pertain to building and pertain to what you wanna have in your property. Sanitation, and we provide sanitation, the county doesn't. You live in our sewer system, you pay sewer to us. Okay, so all there needs to be over there is sanitation and police protection and fire protection. But the thing is that you will make the final decision. It's not up to us.
Yes, and.
That's why we're having this public hearing.
Exactly, because we need more information, we need more of the homework to be done, and more
Yes.
numbers and more information provided to us before we make any kind of
That,
decision.
we'll make that happen.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I honestly, I would encourage any of your residents that just want the answers, they want information, come in or call, and at least you guys will be informed when you have the opportunity to either say yes or no, at least you'll have information to justify that decision.
Yeah, just make the time correct on our newspaper.
Yeah.
One newspaper said 1 hour, and the paper here, the letter said another hour for this meeting. So some people were misguided on that.
it's a newspaper problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just misleading, so
That's why you
I
have
don't
to-
want to point any fingers, we
That's
just
why
want to
you
know.
have to go by what the letter says.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Would you like to speak? Come on. We have a few minutes left before we go to the next session, but that's all right. Go ahead. How you doing? ¿Cómo estás? Yeah, that's nice to see you. Carlos Parra, and state your name and your address, please.
Carlos Tomas Parra, I live on 268 West Allen Street. I'm a resident of the city, Mr. Mayor and council people. I speak on behalf of a resident of the city, member, not to go forward with this annexation. There's a lot to be done in Nogales. I've lived here all my life. I worked for Nogales Suburban, one of the areas what's going to be annexed. But I see a lot of work to be done in Nogales still. I drive around every day. I'm off during the week, so I see streets that need to be worked on. My street is one of the streets that was supposed to be worked on, and never got worked on. It's never been paved. I want to say past since before I was born. Potrero got paved, but other streets didn't get paved, and that's one of the very well used streets that people take shortcuts on to go to McNabb or Pajarito. So that's just all I have to say right now.
Like I mentioned before, Jackie, yes, we do have a lot of work to do in Nogales, and I'll be the first one to say that. And we're trying to address those issues. Morley Avenue in Potrero was paved 60 years ago. Morley Avenue, I can't even remember. It was probably paved at the beginning of time. So, but yes, we do have a lot of work to do, and we will be working on that. And we have invested in the past 3 years over $13 million. So we're going to continue doing that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. We don't need to take action on this, do we? We have to vote on the next. No. Yeah, we've got to go to, no. The public hearing, yes. Okay. This meeting is adjourned.